Senate will come to order for Friday, March 12th. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Legislative Day 19, Friday, February 12th. Anderson.
Here. Here.
Baldwin. Here. Whitman. Here. Boner.
Here.
Bouchard. Here. Case. Present. Cooper.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
Ellis. Present. French.
Here.
Murphy. Garou. Hicks.
Here.
Hutchings.
Here.
James.
Here.
Kinsky.
Here.
Kolb.
Present.
Cost.
Here.
Landon. McEwen.
Here.
Nethercott. Pappas.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Rothfuss. Salazar. Schuler. Scott.
Here.
Steinmetz. Wasserberger.
Here.
And President Dockstader.
Here.
30 present.
Prayer by Father Tom Crunkleton.
Let us pray. Robert Frost once wrote, "Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house in the village, though, he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Lord God, we have many miles to go before we sleep tonight. And snow is in the air with the forecast of a thick blanket tonight or definitely this weekend. You once asked your servant Job, "Have you entered the storehouse of the snow, seen the storehouses of hail which I reserve for the times of distress, for a day of war and battle?" We hope you don't intend to show us the full contents of those storehouses this weekend, but we are grateful for the much needed moisture. Be with those who need to be out in the cold and the snow, those on the roads, those calving and lambing, and those without warmth or shelter. Be with us also this day as we seek to deal with all the business to come before us. And may the many miles we must yet go today pass quickly and bring us to a restful and rejuvenating weekend. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Senator Cost, would you start us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, could I have you come up here for just a moment, Father? We want to thank Father Crunkleton for joining us here in the Senate and sharing with us his wisdom, his thoughts. It was nice to get to know him early in the session or early in the week as he shared his responsibilities, and we wish you all the best in those future responsibilities. A little token of our appreciation for you joining us on the Senate. Thank you. All the best. Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask us to recess for caucus to room 110 for the Republicans, please.
Thank you. Okay, room 110, folks. Short break. Recess until the sound of the gavel. Senator Guru, please. So wait just a moment, folks. Senator Guru, the Democrats will be caucusing and have free donuts in the lounge. Thank you. All right, all the best with the donuts. Senate will return to order. Reading, correction, approval of the journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the Journal of March 11, 2021 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Kolb, Chairman.
Are there any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. New business of the day. We continue to use the university for medical assistance if needed. We have the number here. In 1886, the legislature appropriated a certain amount of money for the funeral services of Governor William Hale, and also allotted money for a monument in his honor. How much money did they do that? How much money did they take for that? Anybody idea? Considering the millions we've been talking about here? You're a little high, $500. Even the chief clerk came in high, $500 for Governor William Hale's funeral and a monument in his honor. Quote of the day fits in with what we anticipate this weekend. There's no such thing as good weather or bad weather. There's just weather and your attitude towards it. Louise Hay. Session status, budget week, third reading. Please, go ahead.
Was there any information about which bar they held the funeral at?
Oh, that wasn't included in the script. Thank you. All right. House bills on first reading. House Bill 7, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 7 engrossed air ambulance membership organizations regulations, sponsored by the Minerals Committee. Passed the House, ayes 55, noes 5.
House Bill 7 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 10, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 10 engrossed COVID-19 Large Business Relief Program, an act relating to the emergency expenses of government related to business relief, sponsored by the Minerals Committee. Passed the House, ayes 35, noes 24, conflict 1.
House Bill 10 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 17, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 17 engrossed range management at military training areas, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Ayes, passed the House, ayes 38, noes 22.
House Bill 17 is assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 19, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 19 engrossed antique motor vehicles, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 38, noes 22.
House Bill 19 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 20, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 20 engrossed driver's license requirements visual acuity, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 60.
House Bill 20 is assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 21, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 21, Wyoming National Guard Preference for Education, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 59, noes 1.
House Bill 21 is assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 22, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 22 engrossed Wyoming Military Code, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. Passed the House, ayes 39, noes 21.
House Bill 22 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 38, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 38 engrossed Community Behavioral Health Priority Population, sponsored by the Labor Committee. Passed the House, ayes 37, noes 22, excused 1.
House Bill 38 is referred to Committee Number 10, Labor. House Bill 57, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 57, Advanced Enrollment, sponsored by Representative Brown. Passed the House, ayes 60.
House Bill 57 is assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 64, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 64 engrossed Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act extinguishing claims, sponsored by Representative Greer. Passed the House, ayes 39, noes 21.
House Bill 64 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. It's assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 65, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 65, Political Subdivisions Deposits, sponsored by Representative Larson. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 7.
House Bill 65 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations.
House Bill 67, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 67 engrossed, geothermal and hydro-related energy review, sponsored by Representative Harshman. Passed the House, ayes 55, noes 5.
House Bill 67 is assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. House Bill 68, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 68 engrossed, Wyoming Statutory Foundation Act amendments, sponsored by Representative Greer. Passed the House, ayes 60.
House Bill 68 is assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. House Bill 69, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 69 engrossed, Division of Banking Fees, sponsored by Representative Greer. Passed the House, ayes 60.
House Bill 69 is assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. House Bill 102, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 102 engrossed, Wyoming Preference Act of 1971 amendments, sponsored by Representative Barlow. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 2.
House Bill 102 is assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. House Bill 104, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 104, Uniform Trust Code Amendments, sponsored by Representative Greer. Passed the House, ayes 60.
House Bill 104 is assigned to committee number 9, Minerals. House Bill 111, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 111, Access to Anatomical Gifts and Organ Transplants, sponsored by Representative Washut. Passed the House, ayes 59, excused 1.
House Bill 111 is referred to committee number 10, Labor. House Bill 122, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 122 engrossed, Hunting and Fishing Access Reliable Funding, sponsored by Representative Western. Passed the House, ayes 34, noes 26.
House Bill 122 is referred to committee number 6, Travel, Rec, Wildlife. House Bill 135, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 135 engrossed, Hank Co. Leadership Highway Designation, sponsored by Representative Henderson. Passed the House, ayes 54, noes 6.
House Bill 135 is assigned to committee number 8, Transportation. That concludes our assignments. It looks like committee number 8, committee number 9. You've got some work to do. Bills on second reading. Pass one up. Reports from standing committees, please.
March 10, 2021. Mr. President, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom was referred Senate File 152, Connection of Utility Services, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Anderson, Beitman, Cooper, and Wasserberger. No Senator Rothfuss. Senator Anderson, Chairman. March 11, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred Senate File 78, Real Estate Appraisers Continuing Education. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, Nethercott, and Scott. Senator Driscoll, Chairman. March 11, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 142, Prohibition on Private Funds for Conducting Elections. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, and Nethercott. No Senator Scott. Senator Driscoll, Chairman. March 11, 2021, Mr. President, Committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 145, Election Runoffs. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Boner, Case, Driscoll, and Nethercott. No Senator Scott. Senator Driscoll, Chairman.
Bills on second reading. Senate File 38, second reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 38, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations.
Senate File 38, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Senate File 39, second reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 39, Digital Identity.
Senate File 39, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 58, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 58, Wyoming investment in nursery funding.
Senate File 58, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 66, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 66, Slayer rule applied to joint ownership.
Senate File 66, having President Perkins.
Mr. President, we had this discussion yesterday, and I apologize because we had the budget today. I didn't get it done, but there's an amendment I'd like to bring on that for second reading. If we could lay that back one day, I'd really appreciate it.
Absent objection. Senate File 66 will be laid back one day. Senate File 75, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 75, protective orders amendments.
Senate File 75, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 100, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 100, internet freedom prohibiting discrimination.
Senate File 100, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 107, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 107, transportation statutory amendments 2.
Senate File 107, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 114, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 114, state land leases.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I was off the floor for a matter of personal necessity for a few minutes when we first started committee of the whole yesterday. And the proper time for declaring a conflict of interest is committee of the whole. I was unable to do that yesterday. So I would like at this time to say to the Senate, this has to do with state leases. I've got several, our businesses, family businesses, got a number of them. I have a personal or private interest in this bill, and I wish to declare a conflict of interest at this time.
Thank you, Senator. Senate File 114, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 116, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 116, Wyoming Business Council Directors reduction.
Senate File 116, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 143, second reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 143, school finance funding model amendments.
There are amendments. Clerk, read in the first amendment.
Senate File 143, second reading amendment number 1, page 13, after line 13, in.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 143 and would ask for this body's favorable consideration. Yesterday, senators, we talked about preserving the ability of districts to provide reading recovery to K-3 students. In the amendment that we discussed, it has come to my attention that reading recovery is actually the name of a specific curriculum and a specific program. So there was concerns that we were directing it to one particular entity. So the the amendment you have before you would make it more broad and less prescriptive. So you would see evidence-based reading remediation in its place. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Questions? Do I hear a question? Question on third reading amendment or second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 143. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The amendment is passed. Reading clerk, read in the second amendment.
Senate File 143, second reading amendment number 2, page 6, line 6, delete the.
Senator Wasserberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I bring you second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 143, and I move it at this time.
Thank you.
And essentially, members of the Senate, this is, I think, one of the biggest pieces that's wrong in the recalibration bill. This is heavily researched, supported by almost every research that you can find on primary grades. Primary grades are typically K-3 or K-2. Essentially, what this does is change from 20 students to 18 students. And actually, the research is for 16 students is what the recalibration formula called for. for. And so I would ask for your favorable support on this amendment. I think it's an outstanding amendment, and I would call for the ayes and nays, Mr. President.
Questions for the sponsor? Questions or discussion? Let's go this way. Senator Scott and then Senator Kinsky.
Mr. President, standing on and against this amendment. Mr. President, this is in the class size, which is the mechanism whereby we're eliminating the ghost teachers that don't exist, that are providing the slush fund that's causing the troubles with our education finance system. You could do this if you wanted to, but if you do this, you ought also to remove the provision that increases the teachers' salaries back up to where they actually are. And the bill contains that provision. This amendment does not reach that. This is strictly class size. I don't know the exact financial consequences. And I'm not sure that they're essential to understanding this amendment. We would like the lower class sizes, but they haven't been implemented. They've been used as a diversion. If we pass this amendment, we will wind up not being able to afford to do the other things that we're doing here, the increase that we did put in for the teachers. And just doing this without doing that, I don't think gives us a responsible look at it as to how would be the best way to do this. So I would urge us to stick by yesterday's decision and keep the reductions where they are so we can afford the increases, Mr. President, so that we have a system that really works and doesn't hurt the kids. A district could use those teacher funds to do this on its own, but there's a trade-off there. If you're going to not work the teachers quite so hard, you don't need to pay them quite so much, is the general nature of the trade-off. So for all those reasons, Mr. President, I would hope we would defeat this amendment.
On and against the amendment, just if you folks, the model in quotes that is baked into statute and that is modified in this exists nowhere in the state of Wyoming. This is a mythical district, does not exist. The decision to vote for 18 or 20 or 22 is just a decision as to whether you're going to fund fewer teachers that don't exist or more teachers that don't exist. You're not really voting on whether you're going to have a lower grade class size of 18 or 20. We don't make that determination. The districts make that decision. So by changing this from 20 to 18, it's simply a decision that you're going to reduce the amount of funding that we give to the districts to spend as they please by less than we otherwise would. It's not a vote on what class size. It really isn't. It's just the amount of money that goes out to the districts. So I would urge us to stand with the bill as passed, and let's keep this moving along down the hall and see if we can make some progress on reducing overall funding in a responsible manner to avoid the financial Armageddon to which we are hurtling all too quickly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion on the amendment. Let's go back. Oh, before we go back to you, Senator Wasserberger, let's go to Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On for the amendment, and I just wanted to dispel a couple of what I consider to be inaccurate statements. The funding in the model, it is a block grant, but most of the funding goes to teachers. And particularly if you're supporting this particular piece of legislation, there's new language in this bill draft that would make sure that this money that's being put back in right now goes nowhere else but teachers. So if you're on and for this bill, You increase this classroom size, you go with the teacher salary that's in place, there are funds available for the purpose of doing nothing but hiring additional teachers. So it would be money left on the table, literally, if they didn't spend it on hiring additional teachers. This amendment does exactly what the good proponent said it does. It translates directly and to nothing else to more teachers if this amendment passes and the bill passes as the language currently stands. There's no ambiguity. There's no alternative. Under the existing block grant, the assertion is correct. But under the legislation as drafted, it is not. So if you want smaller class sizes, it definitely costs more money. We know that, right? You have more teachers. They teach smaller classes. The math just works itself out so that you're going to have more of them. But I just want to make it clear to the chamber as you're voting on this, that the amendment will, with no exceptions, lead to more classroom teachers and can be spent on nothing else. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Back to the sponsor, Senator Wasserberger.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. On and in favor of the amendment. In fact, I may have heard wrong, but from the good senator from Natrona County, he said that, I thought he said that we had taken out more teachers than he thought. And so this amendment actually puts teachers back into the model, but it only puts it in the primary grades. I do not try and change any of the classroom sizes past the grade of 3. And essentially what this does is the single most important thing that we do is to make sure that kids are reading at grade level by grade 3. And if we don't make that target, all kinds of funky things happen in a student's life. For instance, they become at risk and all the things that at-risk students do. And so I believe that this may be a step too far by us when we increase class sizes by 4 at the primary grades. And so it's absolutely critical that our grade K, first, second, and third have the time to spend with each kid so that they learn to read. And we make that target. And so I ask for your favorable support, but I want to say something about, we're talking about increasing teacher salaries. We're going to do that in the model. And we're going to send to the large school districts cuts of 10%. 10% to my district, 12.4 million. You think we're going to increase teacher salaries when we're cutting 12.4 million? Do you really believe that? It's the history that never was and never will be. Secondly, to the good senator from Sheridan County. Our districts, 98% of them follow the model. They like to keep their class sizes small if they can at the primary grades. And there's a reason for it, and they do it. And it's like the good senator from Albany County said, they do follow it. And we have research that shows from our consultants that they are following the model. And so on and in favor of this amendment, I think it's the most critical part of the recalibration bill. I ask for your positive vote for primary grades and to keep those teachers in those classrooms small. On and in favor of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ready for the question? Question being called, I'll call it roll call. Ayes and nays.
Second reading amendment number 2 for Senate File 143, roll call. Anderson?
No.
No. Baldwin? No. Beitman? No. Boner?
No.
No. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? No. Ellis? No. French? No. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? Aye. Landon? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? No. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 143, second reading amendment number 2, 6 aye, 24 no.
Second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 143 has failed. Now back on the bill. Senate File 143 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate Joint Resolution number 2, second reading of the Senate Joint Resolution. Second reading of Senate Joint Resolution number 3, second reading of the
Senate Joint Resolution 3, federal suspension and orders on oil and gas production.
There is an amendment. Senator Cooper? Do you have an amendment to Senate Joint Resolution 3?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Let me get my stuff on the right direction. Okay, I need to move the amendment.
Yeah, go ahead and move the amendment and then just give us a brief explanation of it.
Page 3 after line 23.
Just-
Whereas these
Well,
executive actions.
Senator, I need you to move, I need you to move the joint resolution first.
No, the amendment. Move the amendment.
Yes, sorry, move the amendment. Go ahead and move it.
I move second reading. Amendment number 1 to Senate Joint Resolution number 3.
Good to go. Give us an
Sorry,
explanation.
so that was my first.
That's okay, no problem. It's a complicated process. I'm still sorting it out up here. So
Okay. Now I'm gonna tell you what it says. All right. It says, whereas these executive actions will adversely impact and jeopardize the employment of at least 20,000 Wyoming citizens who directly and indirectly work in the oil and gas industry, oil and gas and related industries. And I ask for your favorable consideration.
we have it. Any discussion on the amendment? No, question being called. Question is on reading amendment number 2, question being called. The question is on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate Joint Resolution 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The amendment has passed for the resolution. Senate Joint Resolution number 3, having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Bills on third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, do you have a consent list?
Mr. President, we do. I move third reading approval of the following bills. Senate File 30, Pandemic Response Review Task Force. Senate File 122, Wyoming Agriculture Authority. Senate File 124, Defending Wyoming Business. Trade and Commerce Amendments, Senate File 148. Requirements relating to depositors amendments, Senate File 157. Property rights, limitation on local authority.
Thank you. Would anybody like any of these bills removed? Senator Hicks.
President, could I have Senate File 30 Pandemic Response Review Task Force removed from the consent list?
Senate File 30 has been removed from the consent list. Any other to be removed from the consent list? All right. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? Senate File 122, Wyoming Agricultural Authority. Senate File 124, Defending Wyoming Business, Trade, and Commerce Amendments. Senate File 148, Requirements Relating to Depositors Amendments. Senate File 157, Property Rights, Limitation on Local Authority. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
On the consent list, Anderson,
Aye.
Baldwin. Whitman. Boner,
Aye.
Bouchard. No. Case. Cooper. Driscoll. Driscoll. Ellis. French. Murphy. Guru. Hicks. Hutchings. James. No. Kinsky. Cole. Cost. Landon. McEwen. Nethercott. Pappas. Perkins. Rothfuss. Salazar. Schuler. Scott. Steinmetz. Wasserberger. President Dockstader.
Aye.
On the consent list, 28 aye, 2 no. Senate File 122, are there any changes? Whitman, aye to no. Case, aye to no. Closing vote. Bouchard is no. James is no. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 122, 26 aye, 4 no. Senate File 124, are there any changes? Case, aye to no. Bouchard, no. James, no. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 124, 27 aye, 3 no. Senate File 148, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 148, 28 aye, 2 no. Senate File 157, are there any changes? Landon, aye to no. Case, aye to no. Rothfuss, aye to no. Murphy, aye to no. Is that correct, sir? Baldwin, aye to no. Guru, aye to no. James, no to aye. Cooper, aye to no. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 157, 22 aye, 8 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 120, Senate Files 122, Wyoming Agricultural Authority, Senate File 124, Defending Wyoming Business Trade and Commerce Amendments, Senate File 148, Requirements Relating to Depositors Amendments, Senate File 157, Property Rights Limitation on Local Authority have passed the Senate. Senate File 130, third reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 30, Pandemic Response Review Task Force, sponsored by the Corporations Committee, an act relating to public health.
On Senate File 30 now, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, on and against the bill, and let me explain why. Not that I think that the intent is not something we should look at, but it's presumptuous in the bill that we already have completed and the pandemic's already over and that all the responses are over. And it contemplates that we're looking in the rear view mirror and now we can go back and make an analysis on it. So let me see if I can share a parable with you. Have you ever read a book report when they only read 2/3 of the book? Because that's what we're doing with this task force, is we're 2/3 of the way through the responses and all this stuff. And now we're going to go back and write a book report. I think this would be appropriate for next year. Once we fully get through this thing, we don't know what variants are going to do. We don't know if there's going to have to be a resurrection of another lockdown or restrictions or mask orders. We don't know. This bill's pretty presumptuous, Mr. President, that we can go ahead and write the book review right now because we've all read the book. I just think it's bad policy to spending $70,000 at this time when we're only 2/3 of the way through this. On and against the bill.
Further discussion, we are on Senate File 30. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I am speaking for the bill, and let me address the specific concern that arose. It's my judgment that by the time this bill can be implemented, the pandemic largely will be over. We're seeing significant declines in the caseload. They may tick up a bit as people relax their precautions a little too fast as we're getting over it. But thanks to the foresight in good part of the federal government and the skill of not just this country's, but the world's biomedical community, the vaccinations are proceeding. We are getting there. We are developing with a combination of the vaccinations and the people that have had the disease. We're developing adequate herd immunity. I think sometime between the 1st of April and the 4th of July at the very latest, this thing will be largely in the rearview mirror, and we'll be able to look back at it when we've seen the whole thing play out, when the experience is still fresh in everybody's mind and people's attention is still there, and the time, that will be the right time. We could put it off a year and it would work, Mr. President. My judgment is it wouldn't work quite as well. And we might well see at the budget session a year from now, legislation that would be not as well advised as it would be if it had come through the process here with this review committee. I think the committee is appropriately structured because so much of the recommendations, I think, will be outside the scope of legislation or only peripherally involved legislation. We will have learned quite a bit, Mr. President. So for those reasons, I do think the timing is appropriate. I do think actually the task force structure is appropriate, much as I do not like these things as a general rule. I voted against this in committee a couple times before I decided, no, I'd been wrong and that this was the appropriate way to handle it. I think this is an appropriate response, and I would urge the Senate to vote for the bill and pass it.
Senator Kinsky, thank you. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the bill, I think the concept is laudable. I just think that we need to begin to wean ourselves from task forces. We are a part-time citizen legislature. We have standing committees. I think that the workload of the standing committees, they triage what they can take on, what they can't. They pick the most consequential stuff. I also think our committee work on a go-forward basis is going to look different in the sense that we can have a hybrid mixture of both in-person and online committee meetings, which extends our reach a little bit. It means if you're a committee member, you're not necessarily spending a day traveling to and from. You'd have a day and a half of committee meetings, and so that those travel days then can become committee meeting days, and we can cover a little bit more ground. I also think that a retrospective on the pandemic is we will see world-class reviews of that on a global level, at a think tank level in the United States. And I think that with the advent of so much of this internet communication, our standing committees will be able to bring in over the internet some of the world's leading experts to provide input and inform what legislation our standing committee might opt to bring. In short, I think too many of these task forces devalues the work of us as a Senate and what we're able to do as regular members on standing committees. And I'd like to see us do less, not more task force work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Further discussion on Senate File 30. Mr. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for some of the points have been made, a lot of them. One, I really don't care about the national reviews. They're going to be there anyway. We know they're happening. Wyoming needs a review that's specific to Wyoming. Walk down Main Street, ask people how that was handled. I can tell you for me, since we've passed this out of the committee of a whole, I've got dozens of emails from healthcare officials and different groups saying they laud it and they would like to see it happen. Everybody wants to see a review. It's fresh. The wound's there, it's fresh. The pandemic may or may not be totally over. I'm not going to make any predictions either way if things mutate and change. But the response and how we handled it has already happened. And I can tell you in your community, and I can look at every one of them, there is a huge opinion on how this was handled. From the top to the bottom and in between, we all had our opinions. And opinions are just that. What a task force does is comes up with good, solid reasons that things happen and what we can do better. And this is the time. And I agree with everybody. The task force stuff, I hate it as bad as anyone else. But it doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are cases that you need to do them. This is one. And it needs not to be just legislative. I can tell you in committee, I kind of fought the executive branch off on this one because I wanted the review to be unbiased and across the board. Business people, people that are out there day to day. This is a valuable report to us, and it does give us the roadmap should this happen again. It will. Wait and see what happens. If we don't deal with this, what happens again next time? We will repeat it. I strongly encourage you to vote for this. This really is one that does have significance and will have significance.
Further discussion on Senate File 30. Further discussion, you ready for the question? Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall Senate File 30 pass the Senate? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call on Senate File 30. Anderson?
No.
No. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. No. Boner.
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard. No. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. No. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. No. Hutchings. No. James. No. Kinsky. No. Cole. No. Cost. No. Landon. Aye. McEwen. No. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. No. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. No. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. No. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 30, 16 aye, 14 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 30 has passed the Senate. Mr. Floor Leader, could you approach the desk for a moment? Bills on third reading. Senate File 1. Third reading of the bill. Reading clerk will take us through each amendment. Go ahead, reading clerk, and read each bill number. Catch title sponsored.
Senate File 1, General Government Appropriations, sponsored by the Appropriations Committee. An act relating to supplemental appropriations for the operation of state government for the fiscal biennium commencing July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2022.
I'll just insert here quickly. You do have your amendments in your boxes in the back if you want the paper copy. Now on third reading amendment number 14 to Senate File 1, Senator Pappas. Yes, Senator Pappas. Third reading amendment number 14 to Senate File 1.
Okay.
Let me just ask this just quickly if we could. I know we're in third reading. Does anybody need to clarify where they can pick up their regular copies? Okay, let's proceed. Senator Pappas?
A moment, Mr. Chairman, let's bring it up here. I need my notes. Excuse me, Mr. President, I'm just looking for my notes.
Okay,
Lost them.
let's do this. Let's just stand at ease for just a moment. Everybody collect their amendments. We'll give Senator Pappas just a moment to collect his notes there.
Mr. President, which amendment did you say that was?
For the those listening in, we are on third reading amendment number 14 to Senate File 1. And Senator Perkins,
Thank you. May I have the privilege of the floor, President?
please do.
So you see them, people running back into the back room behind there. There's a list of all the amendments that are going to come up today, set in order with it. You have a score sheet on the front if you're interested in following the score sheet. So those are in the back. You can also pull them up on your screen. On your screen, I think they're in numerically order. The ones in the back are in the order which they come up. The reason, Mr. President, you'll find some of them out of order is they try and put off as numbering needs for as late as they can, but some of them just aren't ready until later. And so we go in the order which they affect the section of the budget. So if it's numbered later than all the rest of them were, then you find them out of order, like this very first one. Instead of having it be amendment number 1, it's number 14, because it just got numbered a little bit later as LSO did the work. That's all that's going on. So thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. And I believe the chief clerk just put another list up on the table if you need it. If you need this list to follow the order. All right, Senator Pappas, shall we proceed? Move the amendment?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again thought we were going in numerical order. I apologize. Yes, I'd like to move third reading amendment number 14 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this goes into section 004 state treasurers and puts back some funding for the veterans tax exemption. Without restoring the funding to the state treasurer, counties foot this bill, and it becomes basically an unfunded mandate to the counties. And of the $2,034,000 that you see included in this amendment, 72.5% is for schools, so that'd be $1,475,667. 17.65% is for counties. That would be $359,001. 7.76% is for special districts. That's $157,838. And 2.0% is for municipalities. That's $41,494. So by putting this funding back in, this means that counties can carry the financial burden of schools, special districts, and municipalities for the state policy. And as you'll note, on lines 7 through 10 of the amendment, this is intended to only be a one-time inclusion. So it won't be included in the state treasurer's standard budget for the next biennium. I also think that this exemption is important for our veterans. And so I urge you to restore this funding both for veterans and both for the counties and municipalities that we are providing this unfunded mandate. Thank you.
Questions, Senator Wasserberger?
Thank you, Mr. President. On and in favor of the amendment. Essentially, as I understand it, our county commissioners would have to pay for this. And I hope that wasn't our intention. So I would ask you, as this good senator from Laramie County said, it would be an unfunded mandate. So I ask for your favorable support of this amendment.
Senator Perkins, Senator Perkins and Senator Steinmetz. Very good. Senator Steinmetz, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we aren't allowed to talk about other ancillary legislation that's going through. However, we do know as the Senate that in order to make these reductions, there were other bills that came as a part of the budget package. So this is contemplated not being a reduction to our counties. We did not intend to have them holding the bag. There is another part of the package that goes with this that takes care of this. And so we don't need to handle it in our budget. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. And in addition to what my colleague from Joint Appropriate or the Senate Appropriations and Joint Appropriations just mentioned, just want to make 2 points. First of all, whether you vote for this bill or against this bill, veterans are going to get their exemption. That's point one. Veterans are not going to lose their exemption. They're going to get their full exemption regardless of whether you pass this amendment or not. Second point is the effect of this amendment is that there is money appropriated every year to pay this tax exemption on behalf of the state. That hasn't always necessarily, and in fact, if you go back, if I remember correctly, back when they did this was all created back when the state had billion-dollar surpluses, and we were looking for ways to put this money back in the pockets of our citizens, and that's where this came from. And since then, the state has funded that exemption. In fact, I'm not even so sure that exemption didn't even exist prior to that. The state just took over the funding of that. So I'm not sure of that, but it's very possible that this may have been originally a burden that was borne by the counties in the first place that the state took over in the years when it had lots more money. Second point is that this is not the full funding of the exemption. This represents about a third of the full funding. If I remember right, about a third of the full funding of the exemption. So it's this obligation, and if you vote for this, it's a shared obligation. It remains a shared obligation of both state and local government. And with that, I think that as you think about what's going on in our country right now, what's going on in our state right now, there's lots of reasons why this will not be harmful to the counties if they have to cough up some money to assist in providing veterans this exemption to which they're entitled. Like I say, the state has provided a significant amount of this. Ultimately, my recollection is this represents about a third of the total funding. And so it's about a 1/3, 2/3 split on the funding of this if the counties have to bear some portion of it. But Mr. Chairman, like I say, in the current environment which we find ourselves, if we look at the broader picture of all finances, particularly in light of the last few days, this is, I think that this is one that you can look at and knowing that veterans aren't going to be harmed. And at the end of the day, I don't think this imposes a significant burden on local government either. I would ask you to resist the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Anderson, go ahead.
Mr. President, on and for the amendment. This isn't just for the veterans, it's for the counties also. The counties are putting up that exemption for combat veterans. These are not all veterans. It's just the combat veterans, and that is veterans that have fought in a war zone in the last 100 years or so. So combat veterans, and it's to relieve the counties of that burden. So on and for the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, on and against the amendment, and let's talk about the burden on the counties. Because if you guys have been following the national news, the CARES Act 2 is now going into effect. Our budget and fiscal staff is advised us that it looks like in that bill, somewhere between the neighborhood of 120 and $200 million will be directly distributed, does not come through the legislature, to those cities, towns, and counties. And so it looks like that there's going to be plenty of opportunity and incoming federal CARES Act 2 money for those entities that they can use that to offset their budget someplace else to cover the cost of this tax burden. If you just do the simple math and you take the 98 municipalities and the 23 counties, and you take the bottom end of the estimate, which is somewhere around $120 million, that's about $5.7 million per entity. Obviously, it's going to be more than that for the bigger, more populated counties and cities, and less for lower. But I don't think that we are going to leave our counties in a hole right now with the large influx of federal dollars coming in through CARES Act 2. On and against the amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple things. Intrigued by the good senator from Goshen County's comments. I'm hearing, of course, when we can't really speak directly about what's going on, it's hard to say, but I'm hearing that that's not coming to fruition in a way that maybe is completely understood right now. Two, I hear the promise of federal funds coming in, but I don't think that those funds probably are to be utilized for this purpose. Probably not the intent of those federal funds, but who knows under current times. And then 3, is this a state program that we're now requiring? I mean, that, hey, look at us, state legislature, let's help the veterans. How could that be wrong? And now when we can't fund it, we're like, counties, can you help us out? Is that what's going on here in reality? Is this a state program where some legislators look good and stood this program up years ago when we had the cash? And now we're making the counties pay for it on their own, or at least a third of it? And if so, that seems a little rough. And so maybe we just need to make the hard decision of eliminating the program entirely, which I know there's many in this body that doesn't. And of course, I support our combat veterans. But maybe that's really the question we should be asking, as opposed to forcing our picture day on the county's budget.
Further discussion, we'll go back to the sponsor. Any further discussion? Senator Pappas, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, and I won't belabor it. I just think it's a little bit disingenuous for us to require this of the counties. And so I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Okay, question being called. Let's have the reading or the chief clerk call the roll. This is on third reading amendment number 14 to Senate File 1.
Roll call amendment number 14. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Whitman? No. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? No. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Baru?
No.
No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen?
Senator McEwen, we're in third reading vote. I'm sorry, I can't give that to you, my friend. So you just got to vote aye or nay. Oh, you can.
I don't know. Conflict, did you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nethercott? Aye. Pappas?
Aye.
Aye. Perkins?
No.
No. Rothbus?
Aye.
Aye. Salazar? Conflict. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. Dockstetter? President Dockstetter?
No.
No. Hutchings? Hutchings, no to conflict. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On amendment number 14, 12 aye, 15 no, 3 conflict.
Thank you. Just clarifying for the record, and I know we've closed the vote, but you did get that first conflict from Senator McEwen, correct? You. Okay, thank you. Please, Senator Scott.
Mr. President, this is the first time I think we've encountered this particularly for the benefit of the newer members. The appropriate way on this, you can stand up during the debate on the amendment and declare a conflict, but it is perfectly acceptable to just vote conflict. And just a clarification, because this is the first time we've hit that. That's a perfectly, and I admire the senators for taking the responsibilities on the Constitution seriously and doing that.
Thank you. Senator Scott, we always appreciate that institutional knowledge. Appreciate it very much. We are on third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, please read the bill number, catch title, sponsor.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 1, section 004.
Thank you. Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 1. Members of the body, just a little background here to help you out with this is State Treasurer's Office manages the investment of $22.6 billion of state money. Over a series of the last 6 or 7 years, what we've started to do is move much of that investment in-house, where if we go back 8 years ago, we had one investment officer in the entire State Treasurer's Office. As part of this effort over the last 6 to 8 years, we've tried to bring more of that expertise into the State Treasurer's Office. We're now in the process of filling out our investment team, which is 10 individuals that will directly invest a portion of that state money. The rationale from that is we already have seen substantial savings to the tune of about $30 million a year that we're not now paying investment advisors. But as we increase our responsibility and the number of people that we actually have in investing that $22.6 billion, there's other activities that are associated that have to support that. To that end, the SLIB board in October hired a audit and tax consulting firm to come in and review the functions of the office. We did not get this report, the JAC, the formal presentation to this, until just a little over a week ago from today, that we had the consultants that did the audit and review of the processes in the State Treasurer's Office on this. So this is new information that we just received, and that's why you're seeing this before you today. But let me share with you just some of the results of this. In October, they put in an employment. We just saw the results and the recommendations from the audit and tax consulting firm. Let's see. So the purpose of the assessment was to assess the State Treasurer's investment and financial accounting division operations, including staffing structure, roles and responsibility, processes, and systems, to recommend steps to rectify issues that have been found. Number 2, the state of Wyoming's investment in personnel and information technology, as one of the recommendations, has not kept up pace with the growth of the portfolio and the complexity of its operating and accounting requirements. Another area, they said, delayed financial reconciliations and reports, which has resulted in delayed fund distributions. Material audit issues related to internal controls and accounting, and significant time spent on rework and recreating accounting records. So recommendations: this financial accounting division professional skills is elevated over the last 18 months. Nonetheless, the financial accounting division is operating with the bare bones minimum full-time equivalent employees needed to provide the back office accounting and necessary controls to support the portfolio of $2.6 billion. We recommend that additional new qualified senior management and accounting positions to support the policy objectives, provide appropriate governance, meet workload requirements, and here's the most operable part: to help position portfolio managers to achieve the long-term success. So, Mr. President, members of the body, as a result of that, the very first necessary thing that we need to do is to provide those additional accounting people in the back office for the Secretary of State's office to or Secretary of Treasurer's office to effectively invest these funds. We had the State Treasurer up here just a day ago that said with some of the new actions that we've created that we may see an increase of somewhere between $56 million over the next 3 years, about 0.71 basis points on our just our general fund side of those investments, and could be as high as $44 million over the next 3 years when we build this program out. The limitations that we have right now is in the accounting section. It is the slow part of the process. We make the trades, we do the investments, we move those allocation assets around, By the time you get through the current accounting and the back office and all that stuff, if circumstances have changed, it delays the ability of our investment people, of the investment staff to go ahead and optimize and maximize those returns. So we're looking at adding 3 FTEs into the accounting and audit division of the state treasurer's office. Would ask for your favorable consideration.
Discussion, questions? Senator Kinski.
I wanted to emphasize that this doesn't come out of the general fund. We pay for the cost of investing the funds out of the investment funds themselves. Long story short, what we saw from the audit is that we have people who should be spending their time figuring out how to make more money for the state and the taxpayers. We're spending too much time dealing with just accounting issues, and we've just got to have some folks that can do that paperwork and make sure that our investment people are focused on getting us the best return for our money we can on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Question being called. On third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 1, Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Amendment number 1, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? No. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? No. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstetter? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 1, 19 aye, 11 no.
Third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 1 is passed. Third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 2, section 10.
Senator Boner, you're out there.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, what this amendment does, it's net neutral to the budget. We're taking $35,000 from the Business Ready Community Program in the Business Council and moving it to the Department of Agriculture for purposes of supporting a very important program that develops ag leaders throughout the state. This is yet another program that took a disproportionately large cut. If you move this $35,000 back in, it would be roughly the equivalent of a 10% reduction in this program that we try to strive for with many other types of programs. And it's really important to support leadership development. I would argue that, and the reason why we're taking it from the Business Ready Community Grant is that this is supporting Wyoming businesses. It helps develop leaders, which is going to have a significant positive effect on the businesses that they run in their communities. It gets individuals involved in their communities and volunteering, maybe even running for office. And I just think that it's well worth our time, and we're definitely investing in our businesses and our communities by developing our leaders who are running small businesses. So for all those reasons, I think it's important that we have some parity here in our cuts, and that we continue to invest in developing our leaders who will in turn invest in their businesses and our communities. So with that being said, I'll sit, I guess, for any questions.
Thank you, Senator Boner. We are on third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1. Discussion. Senator Perkins.
On and against the amendment, that, quite frankly, I'll take a little bit of blame for this because I kind of said is, you should go, if you want to spend some more money, you should go find a place to do it. And, in hindsight, what we see this is now we've gotten this thing where, and I'll take some blame for that, we're starting to compete, certain programs against other programs. And so we go find what appears to be maybe the least favorite or other expenditure government money. And we say, you know what, they don't need that much. Let's just take it and do it here. And I kind of encouraged that initially in one of our meetings. And, in retrospect, I think that's, what happens is now we start to pick that. And we all have things we feel really passionate about. But at the end of the day, if we start doing that, when we start saying that, let's pick and choose between arts and cultural resources and maybe some folks that have some real need in the Department of Health. I mean, there's waiting lists. We could always fund more waiting lists. And if we're not careful and we go very far down this road, pretty soon we don't do things that support our society and our communities as a whole. If we go out, some of those things are incredibly important to your constituents, and some of the things are other things are incredibly important to your constituents. But the other thing that this does is, if we do this, we start to carve off a little nibble here and a little nibble there for your pet little project. I mean, we have a number of people of adult education programs that come through. We clapped for one just the other day. There were a couple of groups that came through. We have leadership this and leadership that. And generally those are privately funded. And used to see a lot more of this, and we were able to extinguish a lot of them in the budget, but pretty soon you can come out and you can get your little nonprofit and you can carve off a little piece for your nonprofit in your neighborhood or for a cause that you think is really important. And if we do that, when we start doing this, it's just a really bad precedent. I believe we've gone away from these types of projects for these little special interests. I hope we continue to resist those. I would hope that we would open our wallets for those types of things in our own community, our own wallets, to fund those things, because they are important. They add a lot of value. But here we're just saying, all right, let's take and make a little contribution from every taxpayer in the state towards that particular program. And I just think that's a wrong way to go. Again, this is an incredibly worthy program, as are many, many others. There's hundreds of programs that we could do this for. And I think you just have to be really careful about doing that. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Question?
Mr. President.
Let's go back to you, Senator Bonner. I forget, you're way out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's still here, sort of. Appreciate the discussion. Just point out that the reason why we are taking it from the Business Council is this is where the program had, existed for many, many years. It's a relatively small portion. Obviously, we're looking over a $17.5 million budget that we're taking out of it, and $35,000 is quite limited compared to that budget. So we're cognizant of not affecting, if we're taking it from another budget, we want to make sure it's not having a huge impact. And just as far as the idea of having more private support of whatever leadership program we're discussing, I point out that has been happening. There's been a shift away from public funding for this particular program and more of a focus on privately supporting the program. But we can't make that change instantaneously. That is a process, and I hope that if we want to make that transition, we do so in a little bit more thoughtful manner than was currently in the budget. Once again, this is still a 10% reduction for this program. They will continue to work towards being more self-sustaining, and we just have to ease that transition a little bit. That's all that this amendment does, and I hope you can support it.
Thank you. Ready for the question? Question being called. Senate File on third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1. Chief Clerk, take the roll.
Amendment number 2, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? No. Whitman? No. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll?
No.
No. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Murphy? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins?
No.
No. Rothbus? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstetter? No. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 2, 4 aye, 26 no.
Third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 1 has failed. Next. Mr. Floor Leader.
I'd like to have you stand at ease until 1 o'clock. Everybody can do a quick break for lunch.
And you know what, I noticed that.
I think, Mr. Floor Leader, if you could actually make a motion for a recess rather than stand at ease. Make a motion for a recess.
I move for a recess until 1 o'clock.
Heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Quick lunch break.